Hello, everyone, and welcome to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike. I'm here with Clifford. Say hello, Clifford.
Hello.
How you doing today, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. So first up, the old classic. What's your favorite dad joke?
Oh, my favorite dad joke. Oh my god, that's a classic, I bet. Okay.
You
There
realize you
are
haven't said anything, right?
yeah. There there are two muffins and they're
Okay.
being baked to a crispy 350 in the oven. One of the muffins goes, "Boy, it sure is hot in here. They're cooking us really hot today." The other one goes, "Oh my god, it's another talking muffin?" And that was it.
And, and then they burned alive.
Yeah. And then they burned the end.
What's your favorite underutilized word in the English language?
I'm sorry, what was that word you used to what was that adjective you used?
Underutilized?
Oh, underutilized. Oh.
What'd you think I said?
Undubulous or something? Yeah.
This isn't that high society of a podcast, my friend. No, what's your favorite underutilized word in the English language?
Probably vicarious. It's a word that we I think we mean to say, but we don't find a word for it. We'll just say like I feel you, bro, or something like that.
There's a lot more mildly better emotional stand-ins that people use
Yeah.
that have less syllables and less value for sure.
It's a
Is there
word
a
that has
movie?
meaning that we
Yeah,
use, yeah.
like you people at home are somewhat vicariously experiencing our conversation via the internet.
Exactly.
I think I used that correctly. I don't know. I'll send that to my spell checker and make sure I got that right. So, what movie will you never skip when channel surfing?
What movie will I never skip?
Yeah, it comes on the TV and you're like, all right, well, I guess this is my next, 2, 3 hours.
Probably. I like Inception a lot. Inception or maybe The Ring, one of those two.
I feel you. Inception grabs me every time.
Hmm.
Such good, you know, such just like great cinematography and story and acting. Like everything is firing on pistons there. It's fantastic.
Great movie.
So growing up, what was your favorite book?
My favorite book growing up.
Mm-hmm. In your
See,
formative years,
yeah.
what
So,
piece of literature?
I like books a little more than I did as a kid. I would probably say Gatsby because it taught me to like analyze a bunch of stuff. It was one that we like read as a
Jesus.
class. I
I'm
don't
not sure
know.
if I'm not sure if I'm qualified to interview you if you're reading Gatsby as a kid over there.
Well,
Damn,
define a
son.
kid like middle school or something.
I still haven't read it, and I'm 30. Like,
Yeah, well, I read it as like a class, for a literature class.
what'd you think of it? Like it, or I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
I
it's your
liked
favorite,
it.
so.
What I really liked is it taught me to like look for symbolism, and
Mm,
there's a lot of foreshadowing in just how they name, just the names of the people, how they describe
yeah,
what they're wearing, all that stuff. It symbolizes them as a person and foreshadows the future events in the story.
it's interesting. I remember watching a video essay about that, of not about Gatsby in particular, but how in a lot of film and movie or film movies and books and stuff like that, a lot of the characters are named rather explicitly. There's a lot of main characters that have like shepherd and stuff like that, like these like uh caretaking leader names. And it's kind of like sometimes where you can see things coming because of that. It's pretty
Hmm.
fascinating. Been told Gatsby is quite rife with that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I also liked Hunger Games, but that's mostly just because it's a sixth story, and there wasn't much of the battle royale style games that have all kind of grown off of that Hunger Games theme recently.
True. I wonder if that's why there's all these battle royale video games going on.
I think it has to have an
Anyway,
effect on it.
from highbrow literature to low dollar items, what's your favorite dollar or value item when going to a fast food restaurant?
When going to a fast food restaurant.
Do you have one that is like a first round draft pick, as it were?
Um, Probably just like a McChicken at McDonald's.
Yeah.
$1 for chicken.
Oh, dude.
What more could you
I've
want?
got a bummer for you. It's $2 now.
No! I haven't been to a
Yeah.
McDonald's in a while.
I randomly was at a McDonald's the other day and I got McChickens. Like, they're $2.
Is it like
Dang it.
2 for $3 or anything like that?
I think it's just $1.99 straight.
California inflation.
I think just U.S. inflation. There might be places where there's still $1, but
Man.
not where I reside. If you had to evacuate your house, what's the first thing you would grab? House is on fire, gotta go. You get one opportunity to grab a thing for sure before you run out. You might be able to run back in, but probably not. What's that first thing you're grabbing?
It's probably my legacy deck, my like a magic deck of Magic the Gathering that I played a lot competitively.
Behind
yeah,
you,
it's
your
probably
drum kit is crying.
yeah, but my drum kit isn't worth. It's not that hard to replace. I mean, I have.
No, I absolutely know what you mean.
I would
My
love.
computer setup would be sad as well, but
Yeah.
it's not coming. It's not the first thing that's coming with me.
My snare drum is probably like number 3 or 4 on the list. Specifically,
Oh, wow.
my snare. Everything else I
Jeez.
can replace, but my snare was my snare drum for my kit. It came from a Thai Tour Pro X. Like the kit, the snare itself from it. I sat down once at a gig and someone had that snare, and I said, I want that snare. And I searched all around for it. I couldn't find it online. And then it shows up in a pawn shop in Sacramento. So I grab all my extra cymbals. I'm like a broke high school student at this time, so I don't have money. I don't have a job. I grab all my extra cymbals. I do have a lot of musical equipment because I'm a musician, and I worked over the summer and just dumped all that money on instruments because 16 with no financial responsibilities, getting an income is nice.
Indeed.
So it just went all to instruments, and I grabbed all the cymbals I don't use, any hardware, and I just went down to Sacramento, and I tried to turn all of it in. And they had no clue what the snare drum was. They didn't know it was this special thing. They had it priced at like $300. It's like this $800 snare.
Buy no kids, it's a snare drum. You want to buy a snare drum? It's a snare drum.
Yeah, exactly. I see it's a Remo drum. I can tell by the lid on it. And it's like that's not a name of a drum. That's the name of the. Anyways, I would probably say my magic deck. I have a little stuffed animal I like from when I was a kid. That would be pretty high up. It sits up in the top corner of my desk on my room.
Aw.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that, just because I've had it since I was, like, a month old. So it would be that, and then probably my snare drum and my magic stuff.
In that order. All right, going from the hardest decision you'd ever have to make to one of the best pieces of information you ever got, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been told?
Shut up and listen. Probably just shut up and listen. You learn, not only, this is something I've learned a lot recently, just with, how do I describe this? Well, I've learned this a lot from playing poker, too. But a lot of times, you feel you know exactly what they're going to say. And I'm not saying just for your own benefit to listen because you might learn something new. But you learn how someone thinks. You learn where someone is gapping in, if you're talking about a topic that you feel you have a very, normally that's where this comes into play. It's a topic that you feel you know everything about. If you listen to someone, even if you're trying to have a debate or convince them of their side, convince them of your side, if you just listen to what they're saying and how they're saying, you can get a little bit better into their mind and understand at what point what point is their logic flawed compared to what you're assuming is your correct logic. And like sometimes you do just, if you don't know, you learn. I remember the first person to tell me this was my, you wouldn't believe it, but it was my driving instructor when I was 15. He was, I remember we got to an intersection and he said, so here on this, it's a red light. And I was like, yeah, you can turn right here. You wait 3 seconds. If it's a one-way road, you can turn left, actually. And he's just like, shut up and listen. I know you know a lot, but I'm only with you for an hour, so you should just soak it in, and I'm going to tell you how to pass your driving test. I was like, oh, that's a great idea.
And he's like, you're still talking.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You haven't shut up yet.
All right. So for this next one, I'll shut up and listen to your favorite anecdote, if you'd like to tell it to me.
My favorite anecdote. Ooh, I got a magic one. So
I'm here for it.
I was flying with my friend Cyrus. We were flying from God, where were we going? Oh, I think it was when we were going to Richmond. We were flying from West Coast to East Coast, and we're getting out of SFO, and TSA, I put my bag on the scanner for TSA. It goes through, a little beep beep goes off. If you play Magic and you travel for events, you might know that a deck box, something holding a deck, is not something the TSA scanner normally can read through. Especially, so I was going to a Magic tournament and I'm bringing a deck of cards. And the cards have a sleeve to protect it, but also an inner sleeve. And it's a very thick inner sleeve. So there's a lot of this wax paper protecting cardboard. And there's a couple hundred pieces of cardboard being protected like that. And to the TSA, when their scanner can't go through something, they just assume the worst possible. So, and they pull me aside, and they're like, we're going to need to go through this bag. And I go, okay. And they start going through my bag, like, what is this? I go, it's a deck of Magic cards. And it's one of those, the magnetic ones that it flips up. There's not like a latch or anything. So he's trying to figure out how to open it, and then he flips it up. And my cards just go flying, just all over the ground. He just opens it, goes, whoops, and then my deck just falls all. My deck's worth a few $1,000s, and they're just, all the cards are flying everywhere. There's people walking by. There's luggage that could just roll on top of my deck. And so then I start grabbing it, putting it all together. And the deck is fine. And then he's like, oh, this is it. And I just have a bottle of sunscreen in there. And he's like, you can't have that. After he's going through my whole bag. He's looking at like my binder, my boxes of Magic cards. And then it's just, oh, it was the sunscreen bottle. Okay, good to go, sir. And I'm...
He needed to find some reason that he was not completely an ape in this scenario and just like fumbling around with your biz.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Cyrus is just like, what did Cliffy do now? Why is he being pulled over? What is he trying to bring? What dumb electronic did he put in his bag that they don't like?
TSA.
Yeah.
So, from my nightmare to serendipity, if you could guarantee one of your dreams would come true, which one would it be?
One of my dreams to come true? I don't know if I'd want to guarantee anything. I don't know.
You don't have the dream of winning the Mega Millions or finding the love of your life or anything like that you'd like to come true? It doesn't have to be something you like literally had as a dream. It could be, daydream or fantasy kind of thing.
I mean, I do, but I really enjoy the process and the grind of everything. If I were to just snap my fingers and have something come true, I don't know if I would appreciate it at all.
That is a very good answer. Touche.
Yeah, it's a kind of boring, stoic answer. But it's my answer.
All right, well, I'm going to hopefully have you regret that answer with this next question, which is, what is your biggest celebrity crush?
My biggest celebrity crush?
If you have one now, that works. If you don't have one, think back to when you were in high school and, fawned over whoever, whenever.
God, you're assuming I know celebrities.
There's no movie that you've watched over the years where you were just gobsmacked and just couldn't pull your chin off the floor?
I'll have to come back to you on that one.
All right. Well then, while you're thinking about that, if you could have worked any of the jobs you've done over the course of your life, but get paid the same as the job where you made the most, which job would you work?
Wow. So I haven't changed jobs too much. One of them I really liked but didn't pay anything was parking cars outside of concerts. I remember my dad was had business connections with a guy who owned like a small concert studio not far from where we lived, and the parking was out in this open, bumpy land, and it was just a big strip of land. And he goes, "All right, it's your job to fit all the cars in there and make sure they can all leave." And it's like I was playing Legos with the cars all day. The car would drive up, and I'd be like, "Yeah, you can fit between those two trees over there." It was pretty fun, and I got paid via entry to a concert and a meal and like $30. So it's not a real job, but as a kid, it was something I was so pumped up to do.
Totally. That sounds like a blast. So looking back in time, is there something that you regret not having done or tried before you graduated high school?
Having not done or tried before I graduated high school.
That you regret not having done or tried?
Probably writing music sooner. I play mostly rhythm section instruments. I can play most instruments. They're just not my main instruments. Anything without a string, I'm pretty confident in. But I didn't start writing. I didn't even know I was gonna be a music student in school until my first year. So I didn't try to branch out into uh, like harmony and arranging and writing and all of that stuff until it was kind of forced onto me as a passion. I did really love it. It's very time consuming. I feel
Mm-hmm.
if it was something most music students are already writing before they're in music school because it's something they know they want to do. So that was something I wish I did a little sooner. I don't know if there's anything that I just haven't done that I know, man, I wish I did that at all before I left high school. I'm
That's a
also
pretty
not
good
that
answer.
far out of high school. I was only 5 or 6 years out of high school.
But that's like a quarter of your life out of high school.
That's true.
So Clifford, what are you bad at that you'd like to be better at?
What am I bad at that I would like to be better at? Getting out of bed, just snap getting out of bed, not snoozing my alarm like for half an hour. I'm that person that has like 5 phone alarms to get progressively more aggressive to get out of bed.
Same. Absolutely. I don't know how to fix that either, but I would like to get better at that. Where
I'm sure
you
there's
know
a
one
better
alarm
real
goes off and
example. I'm
no,
sure.
that one's pretty good.
Okay.
That one's one that I think we all wish we were better at. On the flip side of this coin, what are you terrible at, but are completely fine and have no intention of improving at?
Terrible at, but I just don't care if I get better at it.
Yeah, you're fine with your status of being, bottom tier.
Hmm. It's probably like sports that don't involve a ball. I don't know.
Now you're racking my brain, and I'm trying to figure out what sports don't have a ball. So I guess something like cornhole, you're probably bad at, is what you're thinking.
Yeah, like yeah, random like college party side games. I guess I'm so bad at those. I mean, I played baseball and soccer a lot. I'm pretty bad at basketball. It would probably be some sport thing. I'm a pretty competitive person though, so a lot of times if I'm considering myself bottom tier, I try to get to like acceptable tier at something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's probably like gardening or something, or uh, car maintenance. Like I do not know how to change my oil. I just don't care enough about cars. I drive an '02 Forester that I'm currently driving into the dirt until I take it to the auto shop and they say, "Yeah, this is totaled." I go, "Okay, I'll get a new
Yeah,
one."
we'll give you $5 for the tires.
Yeah, I my exact car and model I saw on a Craigslist kind of site
Mm.
within my county. Someone was selling it for $800, and I was like,
Well,
I just spent 700 on mine. Maybe I shouldn't have.
what's the most bizarre fact that you know to be true?
bizarre that I know to be true. Oh, it's kind of a morbid one, but I know
Hit me.
that I know that this is one I learned from a friend because I was talking about uh, childhood pets, and
Mm-hmm.
he told me, and I looked this up, this is actually true, that cats know when they're going to die of natural causes, so they try to run away.
Yeah, they try to run away and be less of a burden and kind of like
Well, they
they
try to
usually
run
find
from
like
their
a.
death. They try to run away from their death.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they can't do it, so they normally end up dying alone. So if you ever thought that your cat as a kid just passed away and your parents lied to you and told them that it ran away, it probably just ran away
And then died.
and then died.
I didn't realize that they were like trying to actively outrun death. That makes it somehow cooler and sadder at the same time. Not gonna catch me.
Nope. Not
I
today, cancer.
I feel like I heard somewhere. I can't attest to the truthfulness of this, but that cats when they get sick will leave their owner and like kind of try to run away or get out and like go somewhere like cool, like underneath a tree or something like that, or in a hole or under the house and something like that to die so that they're not a burden. Or is that there's some interesting kind of like it's better this way thought pattern that goes through her head, but
Oh,
I can't speak to the truthfulness of that.
well, that's very
Moving
thoughtful
on
of
from
the
the
cat.
morbid. Yeah, it's very thoughtful, Kitty. Moving on. You have a day with no obligations. There's nothing that you've just done. There's nothing that you need to do soon. What do you do with that day? This 24-hour day in a vacuum with nothing on the horizon or on the veranda.
I would probably spend it catching up on just all the small day to day things that I either choose to postpone because I want to go to sleep or I prioritize other things over. Just like, I would be very relaxed if I just spent a day doing laundry, reading a book, vacuum my room, make sure my bed is made. Just small little things like that. Or catch up on. Hmm. I would probably spend half of the day catching up on just small little things that just small little stress burdens that can go away. I
Mm-hmm.
have I need to go through just a bunch of mail. I have this thing online I need to cancel, just little things like that. And then I'd spend the other half, I don't know, probably playing rhythm games. That's something I like to do a lot on my free time. Play some in the groove.
Is there something that you do now that you wish you had started sooner?
Something I do now that I wish I had started sooner.
Whether it
Uh
be playing in the groove or flossing or what have you.
a lot of my free time right now goes to studying game theory, and I really, really, really enjoy it. A lot of the concepts, though, I feel they just take a while and then they snap and kick in, and then you can learn to go from there. And I think some of them snapped from Magic, which I really like. Um, I just wish that I was taking a lot of games a little more seriously in terms of the study sooner. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you and I have both just when we were starting to play Magic, just mindlessly played for hours and hours, not trying to think of how do I
Yep.
improve, what's different. You're just mindlessly like passing the time by clicking buttons rather than actively trying to get better.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, so
I totally know what you mean.
playing with an active thought process towards improving.
Totally. On the flip side of this coin, what do you wish you had ended sooner that you no longer do?
Probably playing baseball. I played baseball almost my whole life until my last year of high school. And I don't know why it took me 3 years to realize that I enjoyed cross country a lot more than baseball. And the baseball culture was just a bunch of rednecks driving their trucks with smokestacks, chewing tobacco, out on the diamond. It's just
What is it?
it's such
What?
redneck culture that I should have known from my first week. So I'm left-handed, and in
Mm-hmm.
baseball, if you're left-handed, it's more optimal for you to play first base, pitcher, or outfield. Those are just the
Yep.
positions. If you're a left-handed shortstop, every time you throw to first, you'd have to rotate your whole body an extra 180. So it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make sense for you to play there. Third base is a little more reasonable because a lot of times you're moving towards first and you have to pivot regardless. But I told my coach that I wanted to be a catcher because that's the position I played most of my life. I had of all the non-varsity players, I had the fastest throwdown, which is the time of from home plate to second when you throw a ball, someone trying to steal second, and they just go lefty catcher next. That's basically what they hit me with. They said I would be ashamed as a coach or something along those lines. I would be embarrassed as a coach if I let you be. And it's just the other thing is that the flip isn't true. They'll let a righty play first, but they won't let a lefty catch. And all of these differences, all of the small optimizations of a lefty versus a righty in every position are basically irrelevant in high school because you're not performing at that high of a level where those micro optimizations matter.
Yep.
I can see if you are trying to get all of your players to play at a professional level that you don't want to build them up to a career where a professional organization might say no because of your dexterity.
Yep.
But it's high school sports. I
But
don't know.
it's not that.
Yeah, and
No, yeah, totally.
cross country was a lot of like team building kind of stuff. Even though it's a very individual sport, you all kind of grow together. A lot of your training is together, but it's still just an individual sport. You have very objective stats on who is best, where you don't in sports like baseball
Hmm.
and football and basketball. You kind of do. You can look at batting averages or yardage or anything like that, but you just
So
have
for
solid
you,
raw numbers, which was a good training ground for me to know if I'm progressing.
it was less about the sport itself and more about the environment, like the kind of cultural environment that went into it, with the whole, like the people that you were playing with and that were on your team and the decisions that were made with this kind of old thinking, emotional baggage of like what would other people think of me and that kind of circumstance, or was
Yeah,
it the game as well?
well, it's partially the game. I always loved the game of baseball, but the environment is so big because you're more often than playing, you're training for basically every
Hmm.
sport,
Yeah.
and I was able to just push myself more in cross country. A sport like baseball, you just don't have that much space
Hmm.
outside of just swinging at the tee on your own time, trying to get better on your swing, better on your form, working on your curve as a pitcher, anything like that. Or cross country, I could just always be pushing myself more and more. I can push myself with others and grow together, which I don't know, something about that definitely clicked with me.
Totally. Now, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one sentence, what would it be, and when would it be?
If I could go back in time, tell myself one. It might be what my driving instructor told me. Just shut up and listen.
Just go back even before you were 16 and be like, look,
Look, there's gonna be a day where you're taking driving lessons, and this guy's gonna tell you to shut up and listen. And it's gonna change your life.
really listen to him telling you to shut up and listen.
Yeah, really. Yeah, shut up and listen to him telling you to shut up and listen.
And lastly, if you could make sure listeners of this podcast heard one song, which song would it be?
One single song.
One singular song.
It would probably be Eclipse by Big Yuki. Big Yuki's one of the artists I've been listening to a lot recently. He's a jazz student from New York, but he's doing a lot of jazz, funk, classical kind of fusion, electronic kind of stuff that I really like. Uh,
Radical.
I just think he's like under respected as a musician or underexposed.
All right. Okay, we're going to throw it to our first ad break. So, those of you out there in listener land, if you want to expose Big Yuki, go out and check out Eclipse. Or if you want to listen to the ads and learn more about these products that don't exist that we're selling, sort of, listen to the ad. Either way, we'll be right back. Do you ever find yourself doing a mundane activity with nothing to keep you from gouging your eyes out or sticking a pencil through one ear and out the other? Uh-huh. Well, then perhaps I could introduce you to music. Music comes in a variety of different types, flavors, and colors. Theorists say that it's the best thing to introduce to your life since food. So go out and get some and make your life just a little bit more bearable. And we're back. So Clifford, what is your passion?
My passion for most of my life has always been strategy games. I love the strategy element in almost anything I can find. I always look for strategy in it. It can just be something small like optimizing how I do the dishes, anything like that. But right now, my current strategy game is one of the most popular ones. It's poker, specifically No Limit Texas Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha.
That's awesome. What got you? Where do you think you got like kind of? Where did that passion come from? Do you remember the first kind of time that you like looked at like optimizing, like strategic decisions? Like, did you? Is there a moment in your life that stands out as a kind of like a watershed moment or a, coming to the light kind of opportunity in that venue?
Yeah. So I always would play games with my dad, strategy games. He was a big strategy kind of guy too. My dad's side of the family is definitely the math side of the family. I would always play anything, chess, Monopoly. I remember first we played Tiddlywinks, just any sort of game. And like this story goes a lot of the time, the dad wins forever, and then at one point I start winning, and then he kicks it into hard mode, and I still can't beat him in chess. And that was always like a passion. Like I'm gonna beat my dad in chess. I'm gonna do it. Yeah, I remember one time he sent me to like a little chess training camp, and then I got a lot more into the game when I was in middle school. I was going to like random conventions within an hour or two for some small tournament that I still didn't completely know what I was doing, but you're playing other kids in middle school that also don't know what they're doing. So it's a fine level of competition for that. I do remember one specific, like there are a bunch of, in every game I played, there's like a little level up moment where something snaps and you just understand every single part of like a game theory concept. I remember one of them was when I was playing Magic. There's a deck I play called Storm. It's where, long story short, information is very valuable to you. You want to do a big thing and they don't know what your big thing is that you're going to do. And there was a card I could play that would let me see their hand. It's called Jataxian Probe. And I remember the first time that they had a way to stop what I was doing, and I saw their hand. So I know what they have, but they also know that I know what they have. And I was able to leverage that information to start, to at least pretend to start like going off, to start my combo, and they felt forced to stop my combo fast as soon as possible, because if I'm trying to combo off and they know that I'm trying to combo, I know that they have a way to stop it and I'm still going for it. That should be an alarm bell to them. Mm-hmm. So that little interaction where it's, oh, not only do I know that they have a way to stop me, but they know that I know that they have a way to stop me, and I'm still going. That was just like one little level up. That was me unlocking how levels work.
Yeah.
And then you can just, every single game, you can put on a scale of levels until you reach a Nash equilibrium. But that never happens in the vast majority of games because you don't play games long enough that everything balances out.
Have you ever run into the situation where you go... Is this so I have this theory that like when leveling that you have to be exactly one level ahead, and that sometimes if you end up going two level, like instead of if you're like two levels ahead, it ends up actually kind of like backfiring, where it's almost like a circle, if you will. So like two levels ahead can occasionally be a level behind kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that That is correct. If you are one level ahead, you are normally maximally exploiting their whatever flaws are with their strategy. If I have a strategy and you have a strategy and you have a flaw in your strategy, my level 1 is to exploit the flaw to the maximum. But then since I'm not perfectly balanced, I'm exploiting you. Anytime you're exploiting something, you're opening yourself up to a weakness to take advantage of their weakness. And if I assume that you're going to adjust and then I readjust, it's almost like I'm 2 levels ahead. Because if you're level 1, I'm level 2, you're level 3, and I go back to level 4, you're actually just getting closer and closer to a neutral strategy. Where what is more important is if they're adjusting rather than if you're next leveling. But of course, it's always going to be best to be exactly 1 level ahead. That will always be the best counter strategy to anything in any context.
Totally. That's one of like the kind of fascinating things about that is if you get there's a couple. I mean, we both play Magic. Sadly, not all the listeners do, so I'm not going to get into this too much because otherwise I'm just going to alienate way too many people.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a couple events that, looking back in history, where people did that. And it's kind of fascinating to look at. Like, okay, so if everybody's going to be on X, we should be on Y. And it like, but so many people are going to know about X that they're going to be on Y, so we should be on Z. And they ended up going too far, and everybody. Yeah, and everybody was on X, nobody was on Y, and they were on Z, and so they didn't have the Ys to, like, consume, and so they were left X facing Z, and Z actually didn't beat X. Yeah. And so it's kind of like one of those fascinating things where you have to find, it's such a tough challenge because you have to find the exact lane you're supposed to be in a lot of the time. Sometimes it doesn't matter, and power level capping and matchup dependency and yada yada. But a lot of the time, you need to make sure you are exactly 1 step and not to take too many steps or not to take too few to slow down, which is why it's like such a difficult and fascinating science.
Yeah, there's a very common debate in poker, which is, do I play GTO, which is game theory optimal, or exploitatively? And exploitatively will always make the most money if you do it correctly. But if you are counter-exploited, you're not making any money. You're actually losing a bunch. If you attempt to exploit and get counter-exploited, normally your strategy is up to 3 times weaker. A counter-exploit will print triple what an exploit will. Simply because they're already naturally unbalanced and they're adjusting to even more unbalanced. That's a good way to explain it. If there's some old tight man that they always have it, and then they just start madly bluffing, they're just going to be printing with every time they raise, you just fold, they're just going to be printing with a bunch of nonsense.
That is a very interesting way of looking at it. I'm trying to think of a way to boil that down to something that people can understand.
Yeah, let me just try to briefly explain value versus bluff. Well, so whenever you bet in poker, it's either for value, you're trying to get called by a worse hand, or it's a bluff, you're trying to get a better hand to fold. Those are kind of the 2 main reasons that people bet in poker. A lot of old people, they almost never bluff. That's just how old poker was played. That's how they know. You don't have to run risks. It's a little more relaxing to just only bet with good hands. So
it's honest poker.
honest, good to God poker. Yeah. You all have this respect. When someone bets, you get out of the way. And you all waste each other's time because nothing's happening. So if I'm playing against someone who I deem to be an older gentleman of this kind of play, when they bet, I'm just going to fold because they probably have it. I'm just going to assume when they put money in, they have it because they don't bluff a lot. If this old man with a coffee at 9 a.m. sitting in the corner just starts running these absurd bluffs, they just bet, and then bet huge, I'm just going to end up folding everything possible. I'm never going to call him with anything except for the best possible hands. And he's going to start destroying me. So, me just folding because I know he's a nit is my counter. But him...
I think you might want to explain what the word nit means or use a different word.
Me folding because I know he's an old man that doesn't bluff is me exploiting him. Him no longer bluffing or no longer value betting and just being like a reckless bluffer is the counter exploit. So if I start by just folding whenever he bets, I'm going to be winning because I know that he's just going to have it. But if he starts running these ridiculous bluffs, he's going to win triple what I would win. Because he's going to run these bluffs and it's going to work.
And then what happens when you start doing the re-exploit of calling him every time he bets?
So then that's how this leveling cycle, if you keep going on your levels infinitely, you'll reach an equilibrium point where no one wins.
Because the house takes a rake, or just in general?
Oh, well, if it's a zero-sum environment, you would both break even. But people aren't good enough at almost any level. You don't get enough experience with anyone where your games line up in such a way that you perfectly counter each other and no one can...
Yeah, it turns out we're not machines.
Yeah.
And that we don't... Emotions take play and in quotes, mistakes are made. So what's the biggest misconception about like game theory, about strategy, or even about poker by the wider world?
I think a lot of people just think that poker's just a bunch of math, and that it's probability and all this stuff. And while math does play, like pot odds matter, what sizes you bet, what price you lay people to call, all that stuff matters. Math is actually not that big of a part in poker as much as theory and logical. I don't know, we call it hand reading, where you want to give someone a possible range of hands they can have based on the actions they've taken.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that don't play a lot of poker, but they want to get into poker, they just start getting way too mathy with it. They start going, okay, there's 200 in the middle, and they have bet 50. I need to be good 1 out of 5 times to break even, 1 out of 4 times to profit, and they'll go down the pothole or the rabbit hole of pot odds, where what you really need to be thinking about is when we arrive at the end of the hand, what hands make sense for them to have. That's where studying game theory comes in a lot. Reading opening range charts and just, how do I explain this?
I think that makes sense. Like kind of figuring out the likely holdings of your opponent and like knowing what is common.
Yeah, it's
and
a lot
this is,
more
like,
of a
one the reasons
logic
it's
game.
so hard you can't. Yeah, it's
a
a logic,
logic.
and also I mean this is kind of there's a lot of experience that goes into this too, because while like hand charts do generally work, there are going to be people who are different that you meet over the years who have favorite hands. There are people that are going to play weird hands because they've got a name and stuff like that. So knowing that and like knowing the people you're playing against has value for this reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. At the very least, being able to classify a player type, and then you can pick your strategy by rock paper scissoring. Like with the old man drinking a coffee, your rock paper scissors is to fold. If there's some hotshot kid wearing headphones, a hoodie, and sunglasses, and they're playing every single hand, they probably don't always have it every single hand.
That's kind of an interesting way of putting it. The idea of beating somebody by folding is a kind of fascinating strategy element that I think is often not looked at and not shown by media that people consume and get a lot of their information from, is that sometimes the way to win is to not give them something effectively, right? Instead of giving them money by calling, like folding it, like you're negating them equity.
Yeah, when
It's kind of, sometimes winning isn't winning. Sometimes winning isn't losing more.
Exactly. If there are a lot of spots where, especially when you change from smaller to higher stakes, where I see this all the time. In the smaller stakes, people will just not earn enough with their value hands. When they have the spot where they should be raking in all the money, they just don't rake in enough. But when they're on the wrong side of it, they lose the maximum. Mm-hmm. So losing less than the if you aren't going to win the maximum, and you can at least avoid from losing the maximum, it's basically the same. Anytime that you would have lost $50 and you don't lose it, you effectively won $50. You are $50 higher.
Such a fascinating way of looking at it. I love it.
Yeah,
To
poker's great.
to the people out there who don't necessarily know or have gone in depth as you have, what's your favorite non-obvious aspect to strategy games and to like game theory and like poker and stuff like that?
The live element. I really like every single scenario. As much as you can theory it out, you can say, oh, well, if we have this robot solver in seat 1 and this robot solver in seat 2 and I'm in seat 4 and it goes bed and a raise, what do I do? I can figure out the flat answer of just what should I do in a vacuum, but you're going to have Bingo Bob in seat 1 and Set Flopping Sally in seat 2 and Old Man Coffee in the big blind. And every single scenario, you can use your logic, but you still have to adjust. You have to adjust every single scenario is slightly different. You'll never know what is the optimal correct scenario because you're not going to know 100% through and throughout what everyone's strategy is. You could assume everyone plays the correct strategy, and you're never going to have a losing strategy if you assume everyone plays correct and you just play correct. But you're not going to win as much as if you go, this person just can never fold, so I'm just going to bet big. This person doesn't like to fold, so I'm not going to try to bluff him. Things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. The kind of variability of those games, I think, is why they're so inelastic and why poker and games like Magic will probably stick around forever because of what you just said. It's just like the fact that it's always different. To be great, you have to readjust, and that's where, like, you know, true skill and the replayability of the game really, like, starts to kick in.
It's also really fun, though. It's,
oh, yeah.
A lot of people, something we hear in Magic is the sliding scale of chess and poker. And Magic is kind of square in the middle. Where chess is a zero variance game. Your pieces always do the same thing. The board always starts in the same way. But we still generate different games every single time we play, which is pretty interesting. Chess is a game where whoever performs the best on that day in that game is going to win. Someone could beat someone who's better than them, but that means the better player missteps somewhere along the way. It is a raw battle of wits kind of game where the better player, the player who played better, always wins. On the flip, the other thing, the entry cost. I remember reading about this earlier. That's why they're so commonly drawn. They have a lot of parallels, but they also have big contrasting points. Chess is a very easy game to get into. All you need is a chessboard, and you need to learn the rules. The learning curve follows a little different from poker, though. In chess, you're going to lose, especially if you're only playing with someone better than you. You're just going to lose. One day they're going to slip up, you're going to win. You're going to slowly start winning more than you lose. But to get into the game, it's basically free. However, at the very top echelon, this game, it attracts a bunch of people at the very bottom, but at the very top, it's just a bunch of grandmaster wizards playing. And there's very little ability to, if you aren't like a grandmaster Hikaru or any sort of master chess player, if you aren't a Magnus Carlsen, you're not going to be able to make this your entire life. You're not going to be able, outside of just a raw passion. It's too hard for it to scale to a public audience because at the very top level, a lot of people just don't care because it's like two geniuses playing against each other and this isn't how I'm going to play. Poker, on the other side, it's a game it's really, really hard to get into. You need a lot of money because you're probably going to lose when you start. It's a game, it takes a good amount of setup. You normally need to go to a casino. If you can play with friends, that's probably the best way to start, and just playing with friends because you're going to play with a bunch of people that all know the rules of the game and you're going to have fun, and no one's going to know too well of what you're doing, and it's going to be really fun. But it's a game that you normally play for money, and when you start, you're normally not good, so it has a very high startup. But the learning curve isn't as high. When you get to the higher level, everyone's still playing the same game, and although you might not understand their decisions, you're not staring at a chessboard in some scenario you'd never be in. You arrive at the end of the hand, you have second pair, and someone bet, and you're thinking, do I want to call? Do I want to fold? Do I want to turn my hand into a bluff here? That's something you're going to see at all levels. These scenarios come up all the time. And it's a game you can see even at the highest level. You can see yourself in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Where in chess, there's so much going on. It's really hard if you didn't watch. It's a little true in poker where you want to watch the whole hand to completely understand what's happening at the end. But in chess, if someone just plops a board state in front of you, if you're not insanely devoted to the game, it's going to be a little hard for it. It's a really thick spot to develop or to digest it all.
Yeah.
And the other part is that poker brings in gamblers. It's a game where you gamble, so
I mean,
there's a lot more.
Yeah, this is one of those things we've talked about and has been brought up ad nauseum of why, like, chess it hasn't died off, but it definitely hasn't become a lot of the game of choice by the general public because the best player always wins. And that's good for the person that's the best, but for the person that's the worst, it doesn't incentivize them to replay without getting better. So unless you're willing to devote time or be of that mindset, it doesn't make you want to return to the game. Where poker, the best player is usually going to win, but not always. Like,
yeah,
would you say, like, on average, like, a really good winning player's edge against an opponent, every hand is going to be, like, it would be insane if their win percentage against somebody was, like, 60-40. That would be, like, a demonstrative advantage, right?
I think at the lower levels, you can have win rates that big because people make a lot of mistakes, but a lot of professionals playing in mid to high stakes pools, 60% is a very good win rate. That means the amount of times you play, not the number of hands, but the amount of sessions you play, 60% of them you end up with more than you started with. On a hand-to-hand basis, it's always hard because...
Oh, yeah, that's not something we can calculate. But, I mean...
But yeah, you could have... If you had a 2-to-1 edge in poker, that would be absurd. That's pretty unheard just because there's so much raw variance in the game.
Even in those circumstances, even if you had a 2-to-1 variant, like, which would be bananas.
Yeah.
Even if you had that, you still lose a third of the time.
Yeah.
Where in chess, the good player is losing, like, 5 to 10% or something like that. Like, depending upon how close it is. But it's so, like, it's so unrepeatable because of the fact that the outcome is borderline, you know, just kind of set from the start when there's any kind of disparity in chess. Where in poker, it's like, I mean, they could still get lucky. Like, 33% is a lot. That is a large percentage of the time.
Flush draw gets there a third of the time.
If 33% of the week you went outside and found $20 on the ground, at the end of the week, you'd have something like $45, $50 or something like that. You'd like, it's a crazy percentage of the occurrences, which, you know, even if you're bad, even if somebody's owning you at a ratio of 2-to-1, there's still 33% of the sessions that you're winning or 33% of the hands that you're winning. And that's like not zero or not like 1% or whatever like that. So like, I think that's like kind of one of those interesting things and why people like go back and play the game. Moving on from the fascinating philosophical and strategic, let us go to the benign and obnoxious. What is your preposterous peeve, Clifford?
Yeah, so my preposterous peeve is people who park on the wrong side of the gas tank and they drag their hose, the gas hose, all the way over their car and then they put it in. So if I have my gas tank on the left side of my car, I would just never park on the right side. Because why would you do that? I could kind of understand if there's a pump open, but a lot of people, it just seems like they just drive in and they're like, oh, I guess I'm here. Oh, yeah, my gas tank's on the right side.
This is where I get gas now.
Yeah, this is where I get gas now. Let me pull the tube over. It's going to go all the way over. Oh, wait, I have like some bars sticking out of the top of my car. I have like a big frame in my pickup truck. Let me slide it through there. So then the tube is stuck in here. And they pump the gas. And then it always leaks because that's not how you're supposed to put the pumps. And then when they pull it out, there's just gas leaking on the ground. Why would you not have just parked on the other side? It just seems so much easier too.
Or you could just like turn your car around and like back in. That's
Yeah,
like the other
just
thing. It's like there is a
anything.
way to use the do anything else.
Anything, but you could just scoot your car because I'm sure there's a pump on the right side of your car that's open. Just slide over to that one. I
Totally.
understand if it's like a Costco gas and there's one pump open and a bunch of people in line or something, but
But it's still you can like back into spots like that though. I
yeah,
mean, there are fixes for that. Or you could. We live in a society. You could be part of that society and not some deranged monster who lives in the outer lands and just wait 3 minutes or whatever it's going
yeah,
to
it's
be for
just
somebody to pump their gas.
it doesn't take that long. But when you're there and then it takes forever, and then you probably go and sit in your car, and then when it's done, it clicks and it falls out and you pull it and the gas leaks everywhere, and it probably leaks in your car because you had to drag it across your car to pump the gas.
Not only is it dangerous, it's wasteful.
I saw someone drive away with the pump in their car from the other side once. Like once in a blue moon, someone drives away with a pump, and they go,
Yeah.
"Oh, whoops!" Or you see someone on the highway with a pump in their car. This
Yeah.
person, they had the pump like rooted through because they had a pickup truck
Yeah.
and they had two poles sticking up because I don't know why, but they were doing something with their pickup truck. So it was like routed through the poles. I wonder if they were like, this is too hard to get out. Just,
Screw it, I'll just take it with
so yeah,
me.
screw it. I'll just
One gas
take
pump
this.
for the road, please.
Yeah. Some people.
That is tremendous. Some people indeed. And with that fantastic, preposterous peeve, we're going to throw it to our second commercial break. And then we're going to come back for the lightning round. So stick around and come back. Having trouble staying awake?
Oh, yeah.
Wish you'd followed your dreams so you had the give a crap necessary to meet your deadlines?
Oh, definitely.
Are you likely to be fired the second another warm body walks through that door and asks your boss for an application?
Probably.
Would you prefer to keep this shit sack of a job instead of explaining to Susan that you've been fired?
I mean, I guess.
Well, then let me introduce you to caffeine. Caffeine is a highly addictive substance that'll keep you jittery and energized to do any fucking stupid task for hours.
That sounds like drugs.
It is!
Aren't drugs illegal?
Not this one. So next time you feel like sitting on the sidewalk instead of at your desk, reach for a caffeine.
Wait, you didn't tell me where I can buy it.
'Cause it's mother lovin' everywhere, you blind Neanderthal. Welcome back, folks. So, Clifford, are you ready for the lightning round?
Bang, bang, bang.
Lightning round.
Let's do it.
All right. Put X amount of time on the clock, where X is however long this takes. Clifford, did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes.
Lions, tigers, or bears?
Oh my. Bears.
Caffeine or alcohol?
Oh, caffeine.
Are hot dogs sandwiches?
Are hot dog sandwiches? No. It's a hot dog.
Bow ties or suspenders?
But suspenders. Who do you think I am? Bow tie.
Give up sight or two other senses?
Say that again?
Give up sight or two other senses?
Two other senses.
Is there a God?
Yes? Maybe?
Neapolitan or Spumoni?
What's a spumoni?
These are two different kinds of three-flavored ice creams.
Oh, well, I've never heard of the other ones. Neapolitan.
Are we alone in the universe?
No.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza?
Have you ever paid more for a meal than you made in a week?
No.
If you had the power to see the future but couldn't change it, would you use it?
But couldn't change it? No.
Red or blue?
Red.
Is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
No.
Shakira's voice in Danny DeVito's body or Danny DeVito's voice in Shakira's body?
The first one. Shakira's voice.
Voice in Danny DeVito's body?
Yeah.
Wine or beer?
Beer.
Over or under?
Over?
Salsa or Lindy Hop?
Salsa.
Dog or cat?
Bork bork.
Congratulations, you've survived the lightning round.
Oh, my last name's Clifford. I can't pick cat.
What? So, now that you've survived, what lightning round question would you like to ask me, and in turn be asked of future guests?
Ooh, how you like your eggs? So, scramble, sunny side up, or hard boiled?
Scrambled. All day. Well, actually, yeah, no, scrambled.
Yeah, there's no well. Actually, it's lightning round.
Yeah. No takesies backsies. All right. Well, thanks for doing this, Clifford. Is there anything that you want to plug, recommend, places people could find you or your content?
You can find me on Twitter. That's kind of the only social media I'm at. I'm at Cliffy81. It's CL1FFY81. I talk about magic and poker and probably some other random stuff. I'm not really a spewer of preposterous peeves on Twitter. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Clifford, for being my guest today, and special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And especially thank you, everybody listening at home or wherever you found time to appreciate this. And if you want to listen to more, you can find more episodes put out every Monday on SoundCloud at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves, or on YouTube at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast. That's all one word with an ampersand in the middle. And remember, folks, life is a journey. Don't forget a walking stick and to look out for bears. Have a good one.